I understand this is the first time since 1930 that the world has seen a significant decline in energy demand met concurrently with a significant increase in energy supply. We are in uncharted territory. And so we have seen a precipitous decline in the price of global oil. Particularly, what affects us here is the price for West Texas Intermediate and Western Canadian Select Energy. This could hardly come at a worse time after 5 years of economic decline and stagnation in our province. Economic fragility, combined with a global recession and a collapse in prices, constitutes a profound challenge for Alberta and for Canada. This will obviously be a very difficult time for everyone in our energy sector and will affect the broader Alberta economy. I've been speaking to energy sector experts throughout the weekend and today. Tomorrow, I and members of our cabinet will meet with top industry leaders. Thankfully, our energy producers are more efficient, more resilient, and more innovative than they've ever been. Their cost of production has gone down significantly in the past 5 years, and their balance sheets generally have improved as they have paid down debt and bought back shares. They are better prepared, perhaps, than they've ever been to get through a challenging time such as this. There is some midterm optimism in the sector that the price war between the Saudis and the Russians will result in a significant decline in U.S. shale oil production in the Permian Basin and elsewhere south of the border, and that this will open up an opportunity for Canada to increase its North American market share and access to capital. But obviously, in the short term, there will be some very real challenges with a reduction in capital spending in this province. And we cannot predict how deeply or for how long this devastating price collapse or the global coronavirus recession will affect us. But I want to remind Albertans that we are resilient. We've gotten through bigger challenges in the past, and we'll get through this one together. Let me be clear. The government of Alberta will do everything within its power to protect people from the effects of this price collapse and this global downturn. Last week, we saw monetary stimulus coming from the U.S. Federal Reserve and the Bank of Canada, both of which reduced their key lending rates by 500 basis points. And here in Alberta, we are adding to that with significant fiscal stimulus to help to save and create jobs. We did so outlined through our Blueprint for Jobs released a week ago today. We did so through last Friday's announcement of a near record $7 billion investment in infrastructure spending this year in 2020 to get people to work. We did it with our announcement of a $100 million loan to the Orphan Well Association to accelerate well reclamation to get blue-collar people in the oil field service sector back to work. We're doing it. We will continue to do it through stimulative tax relief and by reducing the red tape burden to make Alberta more competitive both in the short to long term. Later this week, I will be traveling to Ottawa, and I will present to the Government of Canada and the Prime Minister several actions that are urgently needed to help to protect our economy from the price collapse and the global downturn. And I'm sure that many, if not all, of my provincial and territorial counterparts will join with me in that call as we lead up to the federal budget at the end of this month. Our Finance Minister, Travis Toews, has been speaking with Federal Finance Minister Morneau about these issues today. And I have instructed officials and ministers in our government urgently to develop other proposals that could help to counteract this downturn, both through federal action and by action by the government of Alberta. That may include further acceleration of infrastructure spending. All options will be on the table. I repeat, all options will be on the table to do everything that we can within our capacity to help to protect jobs and Albertans. I will be appointing an urgent economic advisory committee to be chaired by Dr. Jack Mintz to provide expert external advice on how to meet the challenge of this downturn. Dr. Mintz is an Albertan, born and raised in Edmonton, is one of the most highly regarded public economists in the country, former president of the C.D. Howe Institute, founding president of the University of Calgary School of Public Policy, who understands both public finance as well as energy markets. And we will be announcing the full membership of that expert panel later this week. So we will do everything within our power to get this province through this downturn. We should not, however, allow these challenges to undermine our fundamental optimism as Albertans. The fundamentals are with us. We have the youngest and best educated and most productive population in the country. Our economy is more diversified now than it has ever been through Alberta's modern economic history. And when the price war is over, the world will continue to need a stable, secure supply of energy for decades to come. And so for now, we all have to come together, united as Albertans and as Canadians, to get through this time with resolve and with strength. Happy to take your questions.
Premier, you said everything is on the table. Is your budget on the table? That is to say, you have a date to balance the books, you have a plan to reduce spending by a certain amount over 3 years. Just taking those two things, are those on the table as well? Is that part of what on the table means?
Well, the fiscal plan is obviously going to be affected by these massive developments in the global economy and in energy prices. We intend to pass the budget that was introduced in the legislature 2 weeks ago. We're just 3 weeks from the beginning of the fiscal year, and so we need the legislature to approve our spending plans, and we will see what the federal government, how the federal government responds to this very serious challenge. And at some point, we'll come back with an update once we've had a chance to get a better assessment of where we're headed midterm in terms of both energy prices and economic growth. The point I would make is this. Our priority is protecting jobs. Our priority is protecting the economy. And if that means that in the midterm, we need to borrow money to help make that happen, we will do so. Our goal has always been to balance the budget in our first term of government. I was always clear, however, that if we were sideswiped by a major global economic downturn, that could be put at risk. We are being sideswiped by a major global economic downturn. And we will deal with that challenge because at the end of the day, this economy is already very fragile. There are already many Alberta households and businesses that are leveraged to the max. And that is why we'll be looking at doing everything we can to help those folks get through this challenging time, even if that means that even if it means we have to make adjustments to the fiscal plan in the midterm.
And that just so I'm clear, that includes the two things I was saying is originally you had a plan, I think it was 2.5, 2.8, whatever, over 3 years. Can that change? Well, and the second one was your budget balance.
On your first question.
So you're going to still keep cutting spending as much as you.
On your first question, I think it's still incumbent on the government sector in Alberta to learn to operate at least as efficiently as other provincial governments in Canada, because when we come out on the other side of this thing, we will need to bring fiscal health back to this province. And so we will continue to challenge our excellent public servants and the government sector to operate over time at least as efficiently, as Ontario, Quebec, and British Columbia. So we do not have plans to change the very modest operational spending constraints of 2.8% spread over 4 years. In fact, what we will be doing is looking at spending that can immediately have an impact on the economy to mitigate this global downturn. So that may mean potentially additional capital infrastructure spending to get people back to work in the private sector right now. So we will be assessing all of our options. Today, it's too early for us to map out a plan because this collapse in oil prices has happened just in the last 24 hours, and the acceleration of the global downturn instigated by the coronavirus is really only taken hold in the last 2 or 3 weeks.
Premier, what exactly are you going to be asking Ottawa for? As far as you said, you've got your ministers on it, so what are you looking for?
Sure. So we've already, I would refer you back to our priority requests of the national government that we tabled last December during our Team Alberta trip to Ottawa. In addition to that, we've made a number of other suggestions. One of those general requests was the federal government invest in job creation projects here, such as, for example, allowing for flow-through shares to allow the private sector to accelerate oil well reclamation and completion to get the oil field service sector back to work while reducing an environmental liability. Another proposal was simply cash subsidies to help accelerate well reclamation, as we've done indirectly through our loans to the Orphan Well Association. There could be additional tax measures that we have proposed, including potential flow-through shares to increase investment in green and energy technology, such as carbon capture, utilization, and storage, and related technologies to help reduce carbon intensity and help to prepare for easier access to capital for the energy sector when we come through this price downturn. But I think in the short term, we'll also be looking at potential support for businesses in terms of payroll taxes. I note that the government of Japan, in light of the coronavirus recession, has just announced a series of measures in that regard. So we are working on a revised list of requests to the federal government that we'll finalize over the next 48 hours. I'll be taking with me to Ottawa on Thursday.